I get asked a lot, what can I do? What should I do? What can I do to prevent an active shooter attack? And it's my opinion, and you're not going to like this answer, it's my opinion that we cannot hope to prevent acts like this as a whole. There are just far too many people in this country. This is a free country. People are able to move about and think and do as they please to an extent. Murder is illegal, folks, and people still commit these acts no matter how many regulations you throw at it. These people are going to find a way. You ban guns, which will never happen. Gun-free zones, all right, metal detectors, whatever the security measure, we cannot hope to prevent. We should hope to deter and mitigate the damage. Deter the attack from happening, and if we can't do that, mitigate the damage. How? By proper reaction and being aware, having a plan in place before an attack ever happens. I developed 6 principles of response, and I developed them for a reason, to help people come up with a plan and be ready before an attack happens. However, there is a book out there called Threat Assessment and Management Strategies by Frederick, Calhoun and Weston. These folks, these 2 dudes, did a lot of research. One's a doctor, one's a CHP officer, I believe. Look up the book. I found it on Amazon. It was like $86. That can't be right. Go check it out. Anyway, I'm going to sum it up real quick. It's not a prevention strategy. It's a they call it a pathway to violence. I took some training from other folks, and they all reference this book. Apparently, there's 8 common pathways that attackers tend to take. Not all 8. They take a handful, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. There's 3 top ones though, and they all exhibit, not all of them, but a good amount exhibit at least 1 or more of these 8 pathways. The first pathway is called the pathway warning behavior. Any behavior that is part of research, planning, or implementation of an attack. What does that mean? They start doing their research, start looking up online past attacks, what happened in those attacks, and start thinking about how would they carry out an attack. That's the first one. The second one is a fixation warning behavior. Any behavior that indicates an increasingly pathological preoccupation with a specific person or cause. They call this grievance addiction. You notice a deterioration of life at this point. They start fixating on the cause of their pain or the reason that they're disgruntled. And they fixate on it so much that their life begins to deteriorate, and all they can think about is this one thing. The next pathway is called the identification behavior pathway. You start to see this in people that desire to be pseudo commandos. They have a close association with weapons, military, or law enforcement things or ideas. They also associate themselves a lot with previous attackers. So you'll see this in the shooter from Norway in 2011. He actually made a whole outfit that looked a lot like a military uniform, and he was never in the military. And when he carried out his attack, he was dressed as a police officer. They identify with these folks. You might see this a lot in your right-wing extremists. The next pathway is the novel aggression behavior. They perform acts of violence that appear unrelated to any attack. So they might begin to hurt animals. What they're doing is they're testing their ability to carry out an actual attack. They're testing themselves to see if they actually have what it takes to actually kill people. They're desensitizing themselves. You can call it a behavioral tryout. That's what they call it. The next pathway is called the energy burst behavior. This means an increase in frequency or variety of any noted activities related to the target the days or weeks prior to an attack. So you might see an increased activity of this person at the location. And what are they doing? What do you think they're doing? They're testing security. They're going there and testing their plan, seeing where the weaknesses are at this specific location. And in the days or weeks prior to an attack, these folks will visit that location and maybe even run through their path that they're going to take. The next pathway is called the leakage warning behavior, and I have to point out that 60 to 90% of attackers exhibit this behavior, the leakage warning behavior. This is when the attacker communicates their intent to carry out an attack somehow. Maybe it's a comment to a coworker, maybe it's posts online. Anyway, they have emotional leakage. 60 to 90% of the attackers exhibit this behavior. They have emotional leakage, they can't help but to tell somebody. That's a big one, and one that we can easily catch on to. Somebody knows this person and is seeing this. We can't have the bystander effect where we think, I'm not going to say anything because maybe somebody else will. We can't allow that to happen. You see something, say something. The next warning behavior or pathway is the last resort warning behavior. This is when the attacker thinks time is running out or action is imperative. Maybe he thinks the police are onto him, or maybe the target will no longer be there soon. For example, maybe school is getting out in a couple days. He wants to carry out this attack. He's got to do it now before school closes. Increased desperation and distress apparent in both words and actions. Violence is the only option left, and they feel justified because the target won't respond to peaceful resolution or alternatives. Maybe they've tried to resolve their grievances somehow, and they just feel that's not working, so it's the last resort. At this point, they've accepted the consequences, and they have something what's called a short-term horizon. The San Bernardino shooters exhibited this. What did they do? They cleared their bank accounts and then gave the money to, I think, their mom. If you start to see behaviors like that, changing events in their life, starting to close out bank accounts, quitting jobs, sending ominous texts to loved ones, it's been nice knowing you, whatever. Short-term horizons, and that is the last resort warning behavior. And the last warning behavior is the communicated threat behavior. This is when they directly threaten a target. Now, less than 20% actually carry out this warning behavior. And you see this a lot at schools. Some kid will call in a bomb scare prank, or they'll threaten the school with a shooting. Police go there and they check everything out, and a lot of the times everything seems to be fine. So less than 20% actually carry out this warning behavior. Somebody that actually wants to do damage more than likely will not directly threaten a target. Not to say that can't happen. So the top 3 warning behaviors or pathways to violence is the pathway warning behavior that I talked about, the identification behavior, where they identify with military or right-wing extremist groups, and then the last resort warning behavior, where they feel time is running out, action is imperative, they're just left with no options. Take these pathways to violence as they are. I am by no means a threat assessment expert. I'm just breaking this down. Go out and read the book, Threat Assessment and Management Strategies by Frederick, Calhoun and Weston. It'll explain this much more in depth about the pathways to violence and which ones shooters tend to follow the most. Okay, thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel at Active Shooter America.